Welcome to the next episode of Ask Me Anything, our series of conversations with fintech insiders. Our guest today is Zayan Sham, CEO and co-founder at Lutheria. Hello. Can you briefly tell us what you do?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. First and foremost, I appreciate you guys taking the time. So my name is Zayan Sham. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Lutheria. So Lutheria really is working to empower individuals to take advantage of the crypto economy through a global community that helps them get their questions answered by people maybe potentially more experienced than themselves, and also build meaningful relationships with people from around the world. And then also profit generating time-saving tools that allow them to invest intelligently into the crypto economy.
Great. So first, a few questions to set the background. Zayan, what made you choose cryptocurrency as the niche for your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually took an interest to cryptocurrency back in 2017. Me and my co-founder were currently doing our undergrad, and he was working as a research assistant on campus, and I was working as a manager at a local restaurant. And we kind of discussed with each other that, we didn't want to do this for the rest of our lives, and we didn't really want to do a 9-to-5 job once we finished school. And so we started to talk about how we can kind of build a better future for ourselves. And we started to look into investing our money. And it was around this time that one of our friends, Jake, actually introduced us to the idea of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And we had never heard about it before, but we immediately became enthralled with all of its capabilities and innovative technology. And we knew that this is going to be something that's not only going to be around for a long time, but it's going to impact almost every industry in a major way. And so we started to do pretty much all of the research that we possibly could. We were listening to podcasts, we were reading blogs, we were watching videos, we were reading articles. And back then there wasn't as much content around crypto and blockchain as there is now. And so we were trying to get all the people we knew involved in it as well. So we were telling all of our friends and, just really excited about getting onto something like an innovative technology early, because at the time we knew that we were kind of late to the internet party. That was in the early 2000s. And so we wanted to be part of, kind of what's the next wave. And you look at something like decentralized technology, and we think that it is kind of like the second internet. And so we started to dive into it. And like I said, just got really excited. And we recognized a few problems that existed in the crypto economy when we first got started. And then that's when we started to brainstorm, how can we, address these problems through an enterprise. And so we started to look into different ideas for that. And that's how we came up with the idea for Lutheria.
Very interesting. So you mentioned problems and issues, but what are the major merits of cryptos? Can you give specific examples?
Yeah, so when it comes to the merits of cryptocurrency, I guess I would start off by saying that it depends on the cryptocurrency that you're talking about. There's some merits that that span across all different cryptocurrencies. But if we're talking about something like a stable coin, for instance, one of the merits of a stable coin is that you don't have to experience the same level of volatility that you do with other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin when you use it. So you can use something like USD coin or US Terra, and its value is always kind of pegged around $1. So one USD coin is worth $1. And this enables you to kind of take advantage of the benefits of blockchain without actually needing to experience the volatility of some of these other crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so you can use these stable coins to use things like decentralized lending protocols and earn yield with low risk, because of the fact that you don't have to experience that volatility of when you're holding the stablecoin, you're worried that the value is going to go down 45% in a few weeks, like we just saw with Bitcoin. And so that's a merit of a stablecoin. But then you look at something like Bitcoin, and the merits are almost completely different. So for Bitcoin, if you're a person in like a third world country, the benefits that you get from Bitcoin is that it's a store of value. It's kind of like a digital gold. It's a lot better at retaining its value than maybe your local hyperinflated currency if you're a person that lives in like Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So people there, they like Bitcoin because they can, basically use it as their money. And they can save their money through Bitcoin's decentralized network. And I guess decentralization, if we're talking about the different merits of cryptocurrency, decentralization is one of those things. So it kind of goes into the heart of the ethos of the crypto economy. And the idea is you don't have to trust a centralized entity, but you can instead trust this decentralized network of nodes that basically is spread across all these different computers around the world. And now there's no one central point of failure. It's a lot harder to hack that system. And so it's a lot more trustworthy in a sense. And the other major merit that goes across a lot of the cryptocurrencies is trustlessness. So with Bitcoin, one of the things that this enabled was people to transact with people from across the world. This was not possible before cryptocurrency. You can now transact with people across the world without actually knowing that person in advance. So I don't need to know Lucas to transact with him. He could sell me some Bitcoin and I could buy that from him without ever having met him before. And I know that as long as the transaction fees are paid, the transaction is valid. And therefore, you kind of open up the possibilities in terms of all of the transactions that can occur across the world. So I would say those are some of the merits of cryptocurrency overall: decentralization and trustlessness. But then there's also these other merits that are specific to different cryptocurrencies, like non-volatility and stablecoins, and then also like stores of value and verified scarcity, because that's kind of what enables Bitcoin to have that store of value, is the fact that we know there's only going to ever be 21 million of them. So that verifiable scarcity is also one of the merits of it as well.
Yeah. And you also mentioned problems. So I'm kind of curious what kind of problems you were actually trying to address with Luteria, right? When you started.
Yeah. So what happened was we started to dive into trading and investing in the space, and really, like I said, trying to educate ourselves on all of the different technologies and, kind of areas that we can go into here, because we knew that there's so much potential. It just depends on which it's kind of like if you got involved at the beginning of the internet, it's like, which way do I actually go? There's so much opportunity. It's kind of like you're at a table with a bunch of different foods that you love. It's basically like, which food do I want to go after first? So we started to do research, and some of the problems that we came upon was that it was kind of difficult to find answers to questions that we had. Yeah. And so we were trying to search for answers, and we were basically ended up scouring like website after website and doing several Google searches to find an answer to one question. And we thought it would be a lot better if we had a global community that we could kind of tap into and discuss these questions that we have with them, and not just get a basic black and white answer, but have a meaningful conversation about the idea and maybe get a different perspective from other people from around the world as well. And so that was where we kind of came up with this idea for a community, because we kind of realized that one person knows very little, but a group of people know a great deal. And so if we can kind of aggregate all of the knowledge of a group of people into one area, the people that are part of that community are going to benefit significantly. And so that was one area that we decided to focus on early on. And then another area was how much time it took. So this is actually kind of a funny story. So when we were in our undergrad program, you have to realize, like, we were doing school like Monday through Friday. And then at nights we were, studying for our exams and things like that, but we were also working these part-time jobs. And then when we weren't doing that, we were doing crypto 24/7. So, and so we would come home and we would be doing cryptocurrency at like 1 a.m, and we'd be sitting there trading and trying to figure out what's the next area that we're going to try and invest in, what industry is going to, be interesting in the future. And so it ended up turning out to be incredibly time intensive though for us, because we would end up, entering into a position and then we're waking up. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but I was actually waking up every 10 minutes. I would set an alarm on my phone and I would wake up every 10 minutes to check the price, because I was trading on an exchange that, like, the volume was so low that like if at any point my investment or my trade could drop like 70% over the course of like 15 minutes. And so I would be trying to sell out of my position overnight, and I'd have class the next morning at 9:30 a.m. and I'm waking up every 10 minutes with the alarm trying to exit a trade. And so that was when we recognized, there's kind of an issue here. This is way too time intensive, and it's not realistic to be sitting there trading or investing all day for most people. Some people can, trade or invest all day. But most people want to take advantage of the crypto economy, but they don't want to spend that much time on it. And so that's when we started to look into some of these time-saving, profit-generating tools that allow you to invest and trade intelligently into the markets without needing to spend as much time and wake up every 10 minutes from an alarm overnight.
Okay, wow, this sounds like a journey to you. And also, I really love this idea of the community, right? And benefiting from being in a group and not just working on your own. And I guess it also helps not only to address the problems, but also kind of to understand the most common misconceptions around blockchain and cryptocurrency. So could you explain what they are? And
Yeah, so when it comes to the misconceptions of crypto and blockchain, I think one of the most commonly known and talked about is this idea that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are used for nefarious purposes like criminal activity and dark web stuff.
Yeah.
But if you look at the research and you look at the data, obviously there's a percentage of any currency that's used for nefarious purposes. But if you look at Bitcoin specifically, because it always gets criticized for this, the research suggests that a very small percentage of the overall transactions are for these nefarious purposes. And so that's a common misconception, is that Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies are mainly being used for these purposes. I encourage the people that it's usually people that haven't actually looked into the crypto space very much that are making those claims. I encourage them to look at their own fiat currencies and see what percentage of those transactions are used for nefarious criminal activity, because it's a much higher percentage, the research suggests, than something like Bitcoin's transactions. And so that's one misconception in the crypto economy. Another misconception is that blockchain, and I've actually written about this in a research article when I talk about business models around blockchain, but this misconception has to do with blockchain specifically, not cryptocurrency. And it's basically that blockchain is a solution looking for a problem, right? And you hear that, people are, we've been hearing that for 4 years now, at least for me personally, of people saying blockchain is a solution looking for a problem. And it's, it doesn't really have many applications. But that's the same thing that's said of most innovative technologies when they first start out, is, there's not many applications of it. Who's going to use it? It's not going to be that valuable. But when you actually dive into what is actually occurring in the blockchain space today, you see things like decentralized finance and the hold that's taking on traditional finance, and all these different applications that's allowing people from around the world to connect their digital wallets to these different applications and actually plug into a global financial ecosystem that they weren't able to previously tap into with traditional financial tools and companies. And so we're seeing blockchain already impact the finance industry in a major way. And it's going to be impacting other industries as well, just as in just as large of a way in the coming years and decades, I would say. And so when we look at, like, is it a solution looking for a problem? I think that's just a claim that kind of came organically because we're in such an early stage, and people commonly will overestimate the impact that an innovative technology will have in the short term, but underestimate the impact it's going to have over the long term. And so that's what we commonly see with innovative technologies when they start to proliferate, is people at the beginning are saying, oh, this is going to change the entire world in like the next 3 years. But then it doesn't happen in 3 years. And you have something like what happened in 2018, where you have that bear market for a long time and people lose faith in the technology. But that happens with a lot of innovative technologies. And then that's when all the building is occurring in all of these different companies and applications and protocols. And then you see this bull market that we go into now, where you're actually seeing the applications actually work. And so we're really in, I always say this when I talk to people about getting them involved in the crypto economy, when they think, oh, I missed the boat, Bitcoin went up to, 65K. I'm getting in late. But I always tell them, we're still in the very early stages of this. You can see with the applications that are happening just in the DeFi space, that's going to happen. There's going to be applications like that in pretty much every industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, so let's get back to the Lutheria, and let's start from a question about the courses that you are providing within your platform. So if you could tell us a little bit more about them, who they are dedicated to.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about the course that we have just released on Lutheria.com. So right now we're really focused on helping people get involved at the early stages of the crypto economy, and going from zero to hero, we call it. So, when you first get started in the crypto economy, or even if you've been in the crypto economy for some time, you might not know how to actually make calculated entries and exits out of some of these positions. And so the first course that we've released is a beginner technical analysis course. And this is aimed at helping people really understand how they can analyze price action, analyze the charts, to better make calculated entries and buying and selling decisions on these different crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it teaches you things like volume analysis, how to read a trend and trade a trend, whether it be bullish or bearish, how to read candlesticks, how to identify support and resistance, and trade off of those as well. And the students that have taken that course already, we've gotten some very positive feedback from them that it's really helped them start their journey into the financial markets. A lot of them haven't traded or invested in any financial market. So getting involved and learning how they can make these more effective buying and selling decisions versus just kind of throwing caution to the wind and just buying and selling whenever they see someone on Twitter tell them to. These people prefer to actually understand the mechanics behind why price is moving in a certain way. And so that's what our course really enables them to do, is get started in that process and learn the foundational elements they need to get started generating consistent profit. And we're really excited to be following that up later this year with our advanced technical analysis course that's going to help them go from that first stage of just getting started and understanding those core concepts to now taking that and understanding more advanced concepts like market psychology, market cycles, and different other concepts that are related to making those calculated buying and selling decisions.
That's interesting. It sounds like you're through this courses you are trying to actually build a community that will be using also your tools that you mentioned before. So if you could tell us a little bit more about the tools that you are also plan to build, and at what stage of development they are right now.
Yeah. So the tools is also something that I'm really excited about right now, and we're going to be rolling that out relatively soon. So our tools are really focused on a couple different things, but we're building two of them right now. So I'll start off with the first one. So the first one that we're building right now is a crypto automatic signal generator. So this tool and these tools, like many great ideas for startups, kind of came from problems that we had personally. And so we wanted to kind of scratch our own itch. And so we thought, let's develop something that we can use. So at the end of the day, even if the business, doesn't work out at all, we can still use these tools ourselves. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about this, because I know even when we develop it, even if no one wants them, which I think many people will once they see the merits of them, we can still use them ourselves. So the first tool that we're building, like I said, is the crypto automatic signal generator. So this tool really allows people to save them time in that trading and investing process in these different crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what it does is it allows you to create a strategy, which is just basically a set of rules that determines when you're going to buy or sell these different assets. So a simple example of that could be a moving average. So let's say it was a 20 moving average. So whenever the price went down and touched this moving average, you're going to buy the asset. And then whenever it goes up 2%, you're going to sell, right? That's your basic strategy. You can take that strategy, and then with our software, you can back test it against historical price data. meaning that you can see what your potential return on investment will be based on the previous price data for any crypto asset that you'd like to look at. And then you can basically decide for yourself, do you want to run with the strategy that you have, or do you want to go back to that first stage and edit that strategy so then you can have a higher ROI? And then once you get to the point where you feel like, the ROI is where you want it to be, you can now apply that strategy to different crypto assets on all of the major exchanges. And then the software will then say, okay, I'm going to save you a bunch of time now, and I'm going to look at the charts for these assets and apply your strategy to them. And I'm going to send you buy and sell signals on your phone to tell you when to buy and sell, instead of you having to figure out for yourself, go on there, analyze the charts, talk to different people and figure out when to buy and sell. The notifications will just say buy Bitcoin at this price and sell Bitcoin at this price, and then you generate profit. So it saves you a bunch of time in that process from having to analyze all these different entries, because most people just don't have the time to do that throughout the day. And even if you do have the time, if you ask anyone, anyone would like to have more time on their hands. So this allows you to take advantage of the crypto economy without having to spend a bunch of time on it. So that's the first tool. And the second tool that we're developing right now is an artificial intelligent sentiment analyzer. So this is really the idea of, and if you're not familiar with the idea of sentiment, this is really just the general feeling that people have about a specific asset at any point in time. So for instance, if the sentiment is primarily bullish, that means that people think the price is going to continue to go up. And if it's primarily bearish, they think that the price is going to continue to go down. So the reason you care about the sentiment as a trader or investor in the crypto asset class is because you want to kind of take the contrarian route to whatever position most other people are taking. So if most people are bullish, the odds that, the most profitable trade is a long is kind of low, because it's already kind of priced in. Most people that are bullish already bought the asset, so that's kind of priced in. The more profitable trade is probably a short, because most people aren't expecting that to happen. So if it starts to go down, people are going to panic sell, and it's going to have a more significant price movement. So that's why people care about the sentiment, because they kind of want to use that to take the opposite side of what most people are taking. And so what traditionally people do, what I do, is I end up going through platforms like Twitter, and it's a very inefficient process, because I'm going through and I'm reading tweet after tweet and kind of mentally tallying in my head, what, is this one bullish or is this one bearish? And then at the end, I kind of say, okay, majority of people were bullish or a majority of people were bearish. So the sentiment right now is bullish or it's bearish. And it's a very inefficient process, because it's not cryptocurrency specific. It's not like there's, tweets that are specifically related to Bitcoin, and I'm like, able to tally, okay, that one was a bullish Bitcoin tweet, and then like go down. It's just really inefficient. And so we thought, let's build a tool that analyzes this social data for us, and kind of scrubs social platforms like Twitter and Reddit, and then displays on an easy to understand dashboard all of the sentiment analysis that we need, all the information we need to make those contrarian, potentially high profit potential bets. And so that's what this tool enables people to do, is instantaneously get that information on specific cryptocurrencies. So they can type in what's the sentiment on Ethereum, and now they can see on Twitter and Reddit, how are people feeling specifically about Ethereum, not the overall general crypto market. And so it's very beneficial for people that are a little bit more sophisticated in the crypto economy. And so we're very excited to be releasing those relatively soon. And people that are interested in signing up to trial those and become the first members of that can go to lotheria.com, and they can click on the automated trading tab and sign up for that. So those are going to be released relatively soon. So that's kind of the stage of development that we're at there, Lucas.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's a finger cross, and we will look at those tools as soon as they hit the market. So you also mentioned that you are trying to build a community around Lotheria. So what this community is like today, and how actually you're trying to build this, what communication tools you use to enable this community to grow?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So this is the other area of my business that I'm extremely excited about as well, because we've been getting a lot of engagement here from our community members that are already in the community. So right now we have people from over 12 countries around the world that I'm aware of. We might have even more. And it's fantastic because the community is really kind of this melting pot of different opinions, different perspectives, different ideas, and people are able to get their questions answered by different people in the community without having to do those, like I said, several Google searches to figure out, how does something work? Why is this way? What do I need to avoid? And people in the community that are early and just getting started are taking advantage of people like myself that have been in the space for 4 years. And now I'm kind of disseminating the knowledge that I've accrued over that time and enabling them to avoid the mistakes that I've made over the course of my 4-year crypto kind of career. And so the community is fantastic. So we primarily engage on Telegram right now. So we have a Telegram community that we have live community chats each week where we discuss different interesting topics related to the crypto economy. Last week, we talked about narrative-based investing and how we're kind of moving into this era of narrative-based investing. It's kind of driven by these younger generations of crypto traders or investors, and how the community members can kind of navigate that terrain as a trader or investor. And so that was a topic that we discussed last week, but we talk about a bunch of different topics that the community members like to discuss. They come with questions and we come with answers, and we discuss a variety of different things, such as decentralized finance, market cycles, and other things like that. And then we also have events that we do. So we'll have events where we collaborate with each other and we talk about similar stuff like this, where we go on a Zoom call and we discuss different topics and we learn from each other and we kind of grow with each other as well. And the idea here with the community is really, one person knows very little, but a group of people know a great deal. And so by aggregating the collective knowledge of all these different people, we can, take advantage of the fact that everyone has different experiences. And so it's very exciting to see the community is growing each day. We're adding new members, and our goal is to really build a robust community that when a new member is added, they can instantaneously start to take advantage of the crypto economy in a meaningful way that they wouldn't be able to do individually.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So let's get back to the cryptocurrencies in general. So it seems that you as a person, we can I think we can tell that you kind of like a crypto enthusiast rather than a pessimist or realist. So we want to ask you about what do you think about the future of crypto, and what will be the progress. So let's start maybe from from this like short-term perspective. What kind of trend or progress or development you think there will be, or maybe you hope that there will be around cryptocurrencies?
That's a great question, Lucas. And I know you guys are focused on the fintech trends here. So I'm very happy to talk about the trends that I think are coming and very nearly here for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. So for cryptocurrency, I think one trend that we're seeing right now that's pretty much on the cusp of really taking over traditional finance is decentralized finance. And this is really the idea that you can create these applications that no central company is in control of, that exist on the blockchain and that anyone with an internet connection can use. So if you have a digital wallet and you have some cryptocurrency in your wallet, you can connect that wallet to these different applications anywhere in the world, and you can use them and take advantage of things like yield-bearing savings accounts, cryptocurrency collateralized loans, different things like that. And so, for most people, they're saving their money in a traditional bank account, for instance. And traditional bank accounts, at least in the US, your savings rate is like 0.05%. That's what you're earning in interest. And inflation is degrading that and eating into that. And you're actually losing about 3.5 to 4% of purchasing power each year by saving your money in a savings account. And a lot of people don't know that, they think they're saving their money, but they're actually just putting it into a place where they're losing money every day. And that, kind of flies over most people's heads because they don't understand the concept of inflation. But the idea with cryptocurrency is you can actually, or one of the ideas with decentralized finance and cryptocurrency is you can actually take advantage of these different lending protocols. And now you can earn yields of anywhere from like 6 to 20%. And that's very low risk. So some of these different platforms like Nexo, BlockFi, they offer insurance on their assets through different providers like BitGo. You can lend things like stable coins. So you have a very low level of risk because the asset you're holding is not fluctuating in value. And then the platform you're using has this robust kind of security mechanism in place that says, if we get hacked, we still have some insurance on our assets. So it's very similar to a bank. Obviously, it's not FDIC insured yet, but I think in the future, some of them will be. And so when I talk about this concept to other people, this is why I think this is going to be a trend that we start to see really take hold, and we are seeing take hold. The DeFi space in total has already accrued about $88 billion in total value locked on these different applications. And so we've grown significantly over the past 12 months to get to that point. And it's going to be not long before we get over 100 billion in total value locked. And so these different lending protocols, when you talk to people about it, they understand the concept of, I can earn 8%, interest on my savings versus 0.05% and lose money every day. I'm going to do that. And so people, even like my family members, like my aunt, who's obviously never looked into the crypto space before, is now putting their money into something like Anchor Protocol, where she can earn, 18% fixed APY on her savings. And she's starting to kind of venture into that. And so I think it's just the early days of the proliferation of things like decentralized finance applications, because they're just better than traditional finance. Traditional finance is kind of, I think, caught on their heels right now. And they don't really know necessarily how they can compete with something that can offer those sorts of yields, or how they can do it in a manner where they don't have an actual company behind the curtain that's like managing the day-to-day operations. I mean, these are applications that once they're deployed, they're on the blockchain and no one can really do anything about them. They're smart contracts. So they're just code that automatically executes a set of parameters when certain conditions are met. So no one's, when you deposit your money into these protocols, no one's saying, okay, he put in $100, so give him $5 in a return, and they're doing something on a keyboard, somewhere in, Australia or something. So it's kind of interesting because we're already seeing people that have not been in the crypto economy ever venture into it because of these things like decentralized finance. So that's one trend that I think is going to continue. And I think it's kind of take over traditional finance. And you're going to see a lot of traditional finance companies that just kind of say, oh, blockchain and crypto, we don't need to worry about that. They're going to actually go bankrupt. And so that's a trend that I see happening in the near future. Another trend is this trend with NFTs. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens. And these are, if you haven't heard about them, there's one application that's kind of taking hold with people that have not been in the crypto economy as well, and that's NBA Top Shot. So this is an application in the US that's really gaining a lot of traction with NFTs, and they're really just verifiable, unique images or videos or pieces of data, basically. That's what a non-fungible token is. A fungible token is like the dollar. The dollar is fungible, meaning that $1 is the same as the next dollar. But non-fungible means that something is not the same as the next thing. That's a basic idea of NFTs. So NFT platforms like NBA Top Shot are taking hold, and they're bringing in regular people into the crypto economy that have never read about anything, they've never heard about anything, but they're interested in the NBA, which is the National Basketball Association. So they're interested in the league, and they like these players, they're fans of these teams. And so they're buying NFTs because they're fans of these teams in real life, and because they want to hold a specific memory of a player that they enjoy. Like LeBron, they want to hold like a LeBron James dunk that they watched live on TV. And they're buying that, and they're holding that as kind of like either an investment or kind of like a trading card, like a baseball card or something back in the day. And so that's the early days. This is like the first application of NFTs really bringing mainstream users into the crypto economy. And I think that this trend is going to continue with different applications in gaming, different applications in social as well, like social media. I think decentralized social media is taking hold as well. That's another trend. And so NFTs, I think in DeFi are two really big trends that are going to continue to really bring more people into the crypto economy, but also kind of take over traditional finance and other industries as well.
Yeah. And if you were to go a bit more crazy on the predictions, what do you think could happen about the blockchain and cryptocurrency? That is maybe unlikely, but it's still plausible.
Yeah. So in terms of what could potentially happen with cryptocurrency and blockchain in the future, I think that we have a world of possibilities that could occur here. But one of the things that is interesting to me is the idea of people creating their own cryptocurrencies. And so I think that this is something that we're starting to see the demand for now with something like Uniswap, with people being able to create their own cryptocurrencies and deploy them without needing anyone's permission. So anyone can go on and create it if they have technical knowledge. But I think, if I expand my imagination and really look out several years from now, I think that we're going to get to a point where even kids are able to create their own cryptocurrencies for the purpose of transacting with like their friends, kind of like they do with trading cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, things like that. But in the future, it's going to be like Johnny Coin and, Jimmy Coin and things like that. And so right now that doesn't exist because, you can't create a cryptocurrency easily. There's no platform that you can really do that easily on, at least to my knowledge. There might be, but I haven't heard of it because I actually considered creating a business around that idea because of the fact that I think that that's a valuable application. Like a lot of people are going to, and it's a growing demand for that. A lot of people want to create their own cryptocurrencies once they see the value that can accrue to them. And so I think, for all the entrepreneurs out there listening to this, if you want a business idea, there's a free one there you can take. I'm not going to use it. So you can go ahead and run with that if you'd like. But I think that is something that, if you expand your imagination, like kids creating cryptocurrency seems far-fetched, but I actually got that idea from Andreas Antonopoulos, who's a prominent thought leader in the Bitcoin space. And I heard that in one of his talks where he talked about, people are going to want to create their own cryptocurrencies in the future, and you're going to see things like Johnny Coin in the future. And that talk was like a couple years ago, and so it's still we're still early days, but I think in the future that is something that could be possible. And so yeah,
thank you. That's very interesting. What do you think, Lucas, about creating Lucas Coin?
I'll buy it, Lucas.
So maybe I will take an occasion and maybe share my thoughts about it. And of course, I maybe think about it from a little different perspective. But in my opinion, the best thing that could happen in the crypto space is very practical. It's just to make possible to just use it in your day-to-day transactions. Which is not so common today, and it's a kind of a it's something that is in a very big niche right now, or very small niche actually. So what, in my opinion, the best thing that could happen is that someday it will became a very common and very easy to use like a payment currency that you can use for a real transaction. Because the problem with cryptocurrencies, as I understand them today, is that today they are more digital assets rather than currency. But the core idea was to actually make this a currency. And this would be amazing if this would happen one day, because this will just be like the pure idea turned into this let's say democratic and free currency for every single person on the planet. So in this would be something that I would hope for in this field.
If that future did play out, Lucas, I like to ask a couple questions as well. If that future did play out, would you personally do you think you could see yourself actually transacting with a cryptocurrency?
Yeah, because it's like if this would happen one day, it would actually solve one big problem in current global economy, is like the multiple currencies that you have to use and how they are being converted, how actually you transfer this, yeah, through the sequence of very different institutions, yeah, between you and the person or business that you are transacting with. Yeah, so the if you would be able to use crypto to just transfer the money, on the global scale, this would be much more easy and much more efficient from the cost perspective. Yeah, so I think that it would be very natural for all of the all of the people on the planet to actually use it, because this will be the best way to do the transactions with everybody. Yeah, so but this would mean actually that the current economy with all of those centralized institutions in the center would need to disappear actually. So it's hard to imagine, but this would be like a very natural uh, step in this progress of using cryptocurrencies. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because we're seeing right now some of the central banks for some of these governments actually create their own cryptocurrencies. The acronym is CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and we're seeing China is kind of leading the way there with the digital yuan. And this is kind of where the idea of like those centralized institutions, the banks, and the governments, they don't want cryptocurrencies and stable coins and Bitcoin to become the actual currency that people use. So they're like, let's create our own and take advantage of blockchain technology, and not be kind of dethroned by something like a decentralized cryptocurrency. But obviously the people that are in the crypto economy don't want to transact with those, because it's basically just like the same thing as using your credit card today. It's really not much different, except for like the speed of transaction, obviously, with people across the world. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what wins out, if there ends up being like one global currency as well. Because you look at the project that Facebook came out with, Libra, that was kind of their goal with that, is to become the global currency. And the regulators in the US were like, we're not letting that slide, Facebook. So they kind of stepped in there, and so it'll be interesting to see the developments that occur there. I think you're right. That is an interesting trend to see if cryptocurrency could really live up to that expectation of becoming a global currency.
Yeah, because to I think that there has to be quite interesting thing has to happen to allow it, because behind crypto there is no or behind single specific crypto, like for example Bitcoin, there is no specific institution or that will actually have any power to actually make this popular or make this available, and so this has to happen as a result of the pressure from the people, you would say, from the community, or any potential user of crypto. So this is kind of a sometimes I think about it as kind of like a match between the fight between the institutions and the governments and actually the community of crypto enthusiasts. Yeah, and this is very interesting, because in today we were maybe rather expecting institutions fighting institutions, or maybe countries fighting countries. This is actually very different kind of a process, where people actually are trying something that is decentralized, is actually fighting something that is represented by institutions, corporations, and governments. And I think that actually maybe even nobody is actually knows what will happen, because there is no single person or institution that is actually in a position today to be someone that will just play the cards here. So like, for example, with Libra in Facebook, this is sounds similar to crypto, but it's so far away from the crypto idea, because it's just a digital currency created by a corporation.
Yeah.
So on the idea level, it's like it's totally opposite to what cryptocurrencies are trying to be. Yeah. So this is actually very interesting, even from the from the perspective of like the history of development of different economic systems of humanity, because this is like a very interesting something that didn't happen before, and how this idea is actually used by people to turn this into the and actually to change the economy, because we want this as a group of people, and not because there is an institution that comes up with the idea and try to implement this on the market. So yeah, so it's very, very interesting. I don't think there's a lot of people that actually understand what is happening, but yeah, so for sure, it's from different perspectives. It's a very interesting time to lead.
I guess we can just wait and see what happens. Yes, is it possible to have universal currency? And I guess this is when we can just finish our conversation. It was our last question, and it was really, really exciting to listen to you both. And thank you for being with us, Zion, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I love your guys' videos, so I encourage everyone to check out the other Ask Me Anything videos as well. They're great.
Thank you.